So welcome to all of you. This is part of our series of getting to know some of our gorillas a bit better. I'm Message is, who you may know. I'm in Perth, otherwise known as Jeremy Henderson. And I'm delighted to say that joining me today, we have the one, the only Nestlé boy, sometimes known as Sean Tracey, who is joining us from the depths of Epping Forest in Essex. Welcome, Nestlé.
Oh, hello, Messi. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you very much.
And hello, patrons. Or Patreon. Is it Patreon?
Patreon, it is indeed.
Patreons.
So what I'd love to do, Nestlé, is just to get to a space where I and our patrons know a little more about you and share that around a bit. So maybe I can get the 30-second bio of Sean Tracey, or maybe it's more than 30 seconds.
30 seconds, dear. Well, I'm a 50-something male, single. Yes, as you say, living in deepest Essex in England, and a long time listener contributor, maybe, to what was Test Match Sofa and what is now Guerilla Cricket. These days, I am sort of working a bit. It's very difficult being facilities in COVID because now they're getting everyone to leave the offices again. But yeah, and I'm doing a lot of cycling at the moment as well.
I'm glad to hear it. So
tell me, my mountain bike.
What's your connection with sport, and in particular with cricket? And I understand that there's a particular love of yours that's not necessarily cricket.
Well, growing up in a small village in Essex called Thaden Boys was a beautiful childhood. It was sort of like an Enid Blyton childhood because we had the forest which we used to play in.
Darling buds of May stuff.
When I look back, yes. My parents' story is a whole other podcast. Irish immigrants came over, and we landed up in on the grounds of a stately home. My mother worked in the stately home as a maid. My father was a labourer, helped build Harlow, which is a foul new town in Essex. Anyone who knows it will agree with me there. But I grew up kind of with my mum going to this great stately home, which unfortunately now is not there, but has been rebuilt by the owner of West Ham Football Club, David Sullivan. So the grounds are still there. But I grew up, the back garden went onto the grounds of the stately home. And I used to play in there, and I'd play with the Buxton family kids. Edward, who's now was a director at Barclays Bank, and you know, they were a kind of not royal family, but they were connected.
The squire.
They were landed gentry. They owned a lot of land in Essex and a lot of land in Kent. But the key thing was about them, they were Quakers. This is connected to cricket, by the way. I'll get to it in a sec. And Quakers are philanthropists, and they look after people, which is what they did with my mum and some other people who had cottages on their estate. Minimal rent, £6 a month, I think it was back then. And you know, so I had this kind of childhood where I didn't make the connection between this land not being mine, and I mean, I used to wheel Lady Buxton around in her wheelchair, and Tiggy the dog I'd take out for a walk with her. So you know, and they were lovely people, even though they were the elite, the establishment. But Blanche was, you know, she was fantastic, and I had the run of the ground. I mean, I had a birthday party when I was about 7. And I opened the gate in the back garden of our cottage, which wasn't a big back garden, into this grand, you know, and all the kids kind of like slowly kind of stuck their head around and said, "Oh, what's this?" And I said, "Well, it's my garden." and this party went on in the grounds of this stately home, you know, and I was like, I kind of thought, well, what, haven't you got this? I didn't understand other kids kind of maybe lived in a flat or lived in a small house that didn't have a garden or whatever. But what they did, the Buxtons as well, they had set up a thing in Thaden Boys called the Buxton Trust. and they created down in the village a cricket ground and a tennis club and a football ground. And that is in perpetuity. That cannot ever be built on or can never not be used for anything else apart from football, cricket and tennis. And that was given to the people of Thaden Boys. They also built the village hall, which is still there. That it's been rebuilt, but it's still on Buxton land, and it can never be touched. So those things are always going to be there for, and their idea was for the youth of the village.
Mm-hmm.
So we had tennis, cricket, and football. There's a golf club there as well, which is nothing to do with them. But so as a young boy, all of us, we either played football, cricket, tennis, or golf, and we played war games in the forest because that's what you did back then. Funnily enough, my first game of tennis ever was on their tennis court in their grounds of their stately home because, of course, they had a tennis court.
Of course.
I went there and picked up a racket and started hitting the ball, and Edward Buxton, who was the father, said, "Where did you learn to play tennis?" And I said, "This is the first time I've ever played it." He said, "You need to go and join the tennis club." So that set me off on a path. I went down, joined the tennis club, and I think in my first year there, I won the junior singles event without having a second of coaching or not knowing what I was doing. But I just could play tennis for some reason.
You were just a natural sportsman.
Yeah, I mean, I played football as well. I played for Thaden Colts. I was a bit of a nasty defender, completely left-footed, left back, and then for some bizarre reason turned into a midfielder, turned into this cultured midfielder. I don't know how that happened, but I kind of like got a bit fed up with waking up early on a Sunday morning in all kinds of weather. And football back then, you know, the professional side of it it wasn't as glamorous as tennis. You know, I mean, I was looking at people like, you know, Stan Smith, Arthur Ashe, Ilie Nastase on the TV and thinking, that's what I want to be. I want to be those guys. I don't want to be Derek Dugan, you know, on a Tuesday wet night in Stoke, you know, getting in a punch up sort of thing. And there was a you know, bodily contact violence aspect to football that didn't sit well with me. I preferred sports where, at the time, I preferred it where I wasn't going to get hurt.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, they tried to get. I played rugby once in my life at school. Never again. It was just no. This is. I don't want to be grabbing these kids and getting punched and elbow. No, that's not sport. Anyway, so I stuck with tennis. The tennis club and the cricket club are right next to each other, which is important. And I stuck with tennis. I became a reasonably decent junior. I played for Essex and played tournaments all over the place. Even played in Belgium and France, and even we even went and played in Forest Hills in New York. You know, where they used to hold the US Open. There was an Essex, or is it a UK club versus club thing? I don't know. I mean, the LTA paid for it. I'd never been out of the country. I'd got on a plane, flew to New York in 1976, 77, and it was just terrifying. But you know, so tennis was more the thing, and I got to a stage where I realised, you know, I wasn't going to make a living out of it or anything, but I carried on playing tournaments and stuff. Essex Division 1 tennis till about 21. But previous to that, going back, there was a guy who ran the cricket club. I knew a lot of the guys who played cricket, and there was a bit of a rivalry between the two. One, you know, the tennis club was considered very snobby, and the cricket club was more of the, you know, there was a lot of working men who played cricket on a Sunday.
Yeah.
You know, the village blacksmith, you know, that kind of thing. And every year we used to have a cricket club. It was a kind of a social thing, cricket club versus tennis club cricket match, 20 overs of an summer's evening. And I never played in it. I was actually too busy playing tennis to do anything else. It got, you know, when you get to the stage where it just takes over.
Yeah.
I mean, I never had a summer holiday. I was always away playing tennis tournaments. And so towards that end, when I was in my early 20s, I could play in it. And I played cricket at school a bit. I'd watched it on TV and stuff. I went down there, not knowing anything, didn't even have any gear, had to use a communal box, which was horrifying. But I went out and actually I sent the scorecard to Knackle because one of my friends, who's like a curator of all our pasts, had the scorecard from this match. And I think I'm on there for like 46 not out. And it kind of there was a guy who ran the cricket club. I can't remember what he was, captain or whatever of whatever team, and he was always trying to pinch the athletic good kids from the tennis club to go and play cricket, because if you're a young athlete type person, you can play a lot of sports with some success. He took some people, and don't forget, this is a village cricket team. It's not any high standard, but so I'd gone down there for this match. And we a couple of my friends who'd also played in that game were very good athletes, and we slaughtered them. I think it was the first time that the tennis club, it was like watching England play Australia in the Ashes. It was like, how many runs are we going to score, sort of thing. And that kind of like, they really made an attempt then to, and I sort of thought, yeah, I'll give it a go. And so for a couple of years, I mixed the two, and I played cricket it was only Sunday second stuff. I mean, that was my playing career. But what I was really good at, I didn't have a clue about batting. I had no concept, but I had good hand-eye coordination, so I could hit the ball. I mean, my last ever game for them, I remember I went in, I used to go in at about a number. I was the value of a good number 8, as one of our other commentators always says. But I went in at number 8 and I went .66 out. And that was kind of but that kind of tells you what I could hit the ball. And although technically I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't have a defensive shot in me. But I was very, very good in the field. And I was, I could catch anything. I could throw the ball from distance at speed accurately. I was first slip for a long time. I became wicketkeeper because our wicketkeeper was really good, but he was an alcoholic, and he fell asleep behind the stumps one day.
Became not the first of those behind the stumps.
No, I became de facto wicketkeeper without gloves for this game until we actually picked him up and kind of like, took the gloves off him and the pads, and the captain went, Sean, can you keep wicket? I said, yeah, I've never done it before, and I was naturally very good. So I was diving all over, I was catching, I was stumping, I was doing all that. I didn't know where to position myself for the bowlers. I just kind of thought, right, I'm going to stand here for this. And it for some reason, I got it. I got it very quickly, But that didn't last very long. Like a lot of people, you start work. My tennis playing kind of turned into just club tennis. I mean, still playing reasonable standard. I mean, I used to hit with a guy who was ranked in the top 600 in the world, Simon Harston, who went on tour. Didn't he's now a coach, but I wasn't playing for Essex or anything like that. So kind of work and life took over, and I stopped playing tennis really just out of kind of, you get to a certain level and what you used to be good at, you see yourself declining a bit, and you kind of think, well, am I going to turn into a Sunday morning social person who goes and plays mixed doubles? Nah, not going to do that. So I kind of stopped, and I took up the deadly game of golf, because a lot of my friends from Faden. Oh, hang on, Alexa, stop. Sorry about that, folks. Let me unplug this damn thing. It's probably recording this, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I took up playing golf as and I mean, it was interesting. I've got a footnote to the golf. I played golf for a number of years. Only socially. I joined a club. I got down to a 6 handicap through, and this was when I got to that level of golf. It was around the time that this thing called Test Match Sofa kicked off. I'll get onto in a minute. But golf, I suddenly realised after playing it pretty solidly for 20 odd years, I hated it.
That was a slow discovery on your part.
It's fiendishly difficult
to
be good at it.
Yes.
You've got to play 4 or 5 times a week. I realise that. Someone at my level or whatever. Again, with golf, I took to it very quickly, and my friends who played for years and members of the club say, actually, you can play this game. You just need to practice a bit, blah, blah, blah. I had a really good short game and all this stuff. But I got to a point where, I was going on golf holidays and all this stuff and going away and playing at all these championship courses. But golf is really strange. It's so hard and it's so easy to play badly. And you've spent £100 going to this golf club and having a miserable bloody day. And also in this country, you've got the weather. You go out and you're pissed on it. It's cold and you're walking around this field trying to hit this stupid ball into a hole. And it kind of, towards the end, I just said, I actually don't like doing this. Just recently, my friends who I played with said, we're going for our usual Christmas game down at Royal Cinque Ports, which is they held the Open there back in the day. It's a really fantastic, fiendishly difficult links course, and it's always blowing a gale. It's got the inward 9 is one of the toughest in the UK. I mean, it's a brilliant course. And I just said to Mark, I said, I'm not going to spend a whole day playing Royal Cinque Ports in the freezing cold in December. And I know how good that place is and how hard it is. I don't want to do it. I'd rather sit indoors and just watch a film. So that ended. But going back to 2009, this was when I was playing a lot of golf, and I was on gardening leave from a job. The bank I was working at got taken over by Sir Fred Goodwin and Nat West, and that whole story about the whole financial system crashing. I was there when it happened, and it was quite an exciting time. Not that I was into banking, I was working in IT at the time, but to be part of a global news story day in, day out. But they put me on, and a lot of people, on gardening leave, and literally I was on gardening leave for a whole year.
Whoa.
And I was sitting at home, and Twitter had started. And I was looking at this thing when I wasn't out playing golf. I was at home on the computer, just surfing. Stephen Fry put this tweet out about these gang of weird people that had started up this homemade cricket commentary service from a front room in South London, and I thought that sounds good. And being obviously the thing I haven't talked about is music, because I'm obviously a big music fan, and the whole punk rock aesthetic of these guys just getting off of their asses and doing it themselves because they hated the establishment commentary service. Dan Norcross, you won't be listening, but you're now the establishment. But so I logged on to this thing and started listening. I think it was either on, probably on YouTube, or was it just radio? I can't remember. I think it was just audio. It was just audio. And I started to listen to it, and I thought, well, this is hilarious. And there was this guy on there who was doing all these impersonations, and they did commentate on every ball, but it just sort of like went off on just such ridiculous tangents that I thought I could contribute to this. So I sent an email in, and that was it. It was the start. The Bear replied, or the Bear read it out, because back then they didn't use Twitter, they were using email. And they were quite shocked that somebody had taken the time to send an email to them. And it got read out. This is where the Nestlé thing comes from, because I think Dan was talking about something, oil of Ulay, and it became oil of Olay, or something, when companies change. And I just put in Nstlers, Nestlé, blah, blah, blah. And of course, the Bear hacked onto it and said there was a bit where they were going, well, is anyone listening to us? Is anyone out there? And the Bear just went, well, where's that Nestlé boy? So I became Nestlé boy through this one email, one comment from the Bear.
And for 12 years, you've never been able to shake it.
It's just such a weird thing, because it's now turned into Nestles or Nstlers, which is now the thing. And when people say, what the fuck is this Nstlers? or there have been friends of mine who have listened in and gone, well, you're not on. I can't, you're not there. I go, yeah, it's Nstlers, Nestlé boy. Oh, is that you? Because they're expecting to say, oh, well, now we've got Sean,
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to the stage weirdly when we were in the studio, if anyone called me Sean, I was going, no, I'm Nestlé or I'm Nestles. This is Nestlé boy world. Outside of Guerilla Cricket, I'm Sean,
Yeah. Yeah.
But so yeah, it kind of grew from that, and I listened all the time, and I became part of the show via email. I think Twitter did come in, got quite. They jumped on it relatively quickly after that, and it became a lot easier to communicate.
So would it be fair to say that your attraction to the sofa and out of Guerilla Cricket was not so much about cricket, but it was more about the social connection that came with it?
It was the social connection, but also it appealed to me because of the irreverence of what they were doing.
Yeah.
The fact that they were broadcasting out to people via the internet. I mean, I was online a lot, those,
Yeah.
because I was at home. When I wasn't playing golf, I was on this gardening leave. I was at home, and then blah blah. So I was kind of all over the social media and stuff, and looking at it all, and going online trying to find things to keep me entertained and keep me, and this cricket thing became a massive part of it. But it was the irreverence and the way that the conversation could just go off on tangents in subjects that I had an interest in, say, be it other sport and music and film and just general chit chat, which you probably notice, anyone who listens to us, that I am quite, apt at sort of taking the conversation away from a second 11 scorecard from Surrey Cricket Club in 1993 and what the average is. Fine, yeah, but we should have we have to have space for other stuff, and I think I try and do that more than probably I should sometimes. But anyway, yeah, so it was that attraction. I didn't know these people, and it was quite a long time. I was listening, and then it all went quiet. Obviously, we know the story about the cricketer and all that, and I thought, well, that was really good fun while it lasted. It's a shame it's gone. Blah blah blah. And then I think I got an email or some sort of message about a cryptic message from the Bear about the starting up a new service, which was great. I mean, fast forward to I'd started work again, and I said to the guys, "Look, it's been a long time. I've never met you. You're in this TV studio. Can I come in and just say hello?" And they didn't even know what I looked like, and I'd seen small pictures of them. I hadn't got visually all of them, the main protagonists. I knew what they looked like. So I'd gone up to this stinking bloody building up in the West End. I mean, the urine smell outside is something that everyone talks about when they talk about that TV studio. But I'd gone into the door, knocked on the door, and a person answered the door, and I said, "Oh, I'm here for Guerilla Cricket." I think it was one of the interns, and I've walked into the green room as it was, and the first person I met was the Bear, and we blah blah blah, and Hendo was sitting in another little part of the room, and I've walked in there, and I've got a box of bloody donuts, especially for Hendo, but he didn't know who I was because he'd never seen me. And I've walked in there and I've gone, "Hello, Hendo," and he's given me the dirtiest look, like as if to say, "Who the hell's this? Who's let this bloke in?" And I've just gone, "I'm Nestlé boy," and he's gone, "Oh yeah, blah blah blah." And then I gave him the donuts. Of course, that was it.
Love at first sight, yeah.
But then the Bear just turned to me, and this was going out live on a television channel on some number on Sky somewhere next to, I don't know, the porn channel or something. I don't know. The Bear goes to me, "Oh, can you go on?" And I went, "Go on what?" He said, "Go on the show." I went, "You're kidding." And I thought in my head, I'm going, I don't know enough about cricket. I don't know, how the ball's going to turn on this pitch and what the, and he said, "Well, you can just read the tweets out, can't you?" I went, "Oh, I can do that."
Yeah.
And I went on and I sat there and I put the headphones on, and then it was Dan. Dan was there. For some reason, Dan was there. And I said, this is a monumental day that I'm sitting here commentating with Dan Norcross. But I just kind of naturally just kind of went, I got the flow of the show very quickly because I've been listening to it a lot. So I didn't talk over anybody. I didn't butt in. I didn't talk I knew what not to say, you know. And it just became a natural thing. And I could see the tweets coming in. I could see the ones that, probably, don't need to read that out. But all that stuff came very naturally and very quickly. And I just kind of like, that was it from that day onwards. And the bear, I came off and I was like, oh God. And the bear went, oh, can you come back in tomorrow? Or when are you free next? Da, 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 da. So it became like just a part of my life, I suppose, in a way.
Yeah, I mean, that.
I've learned a lot about cricket. I mean, I've watched more cricket in the last 10 years or whatever it is. I mean, my first cricketing. I mean, the weird thing is, although I didn't play a lot, I went to my first cricket match. It was sometime in the early '80s, and it was bloody the West Indies against England at the Oval.
Yeah.
So my initiation into the professional game, aside from the telly, because I used to watch the TV stuff, and I understood the game. Obviously, it's not that difficult, but I used to watch, England matches and whatever. But my first live experience, and when it really clicked with me, and again, this is sort of in my thing about the England team were all kind of like sort of, I don't know, dour kind of like uninspiring guys. And then out on the field walks Marvin Gaye, as far as I could work out. This gorgeous looking, incredibly athletic guy, and it was Viv.
Yeah.
And he's swinging, and then he starts playing cricket. I'm just going, that is what this game should be about.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful.
It totally hooked me on watching, because I mean, any time that on the TV, the West Indies were playing, I'd watch. If England were playing, even if England, I watched the Ashes a bit, and if England were playing South Africa or India, I didn't have that connection that I had with Richards, all those guys, Holding, Marsh. I for some reason, I was lucky, because at that period they were so much better than everybody else, and so played a different game to everyone else.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to the tennis just briefly, I always gravitated towards the Nstlers, the McEnroes, those kind of
the
players.
Bad boys.
Well, it's not just that; it's just the talent.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, Borg, I respected him for his incredible, but I never warmed to him. Amazing what he did. But as soon as McEnroe came along, I was like, here we go. This is the guy. Flair players. I always, now I can't. Djokovic, I don't get it. I know he's good, but I don't get it. I don't. It's Federer.
Absolutely,
you got Marat Safin, all those kind of really good players. But I never really warmed to those kind of guys, and that's what the West Indies were to me. They took the game away from this kind of. I mean, I'm sure they did defend. They had defensive shots in their arsenal, but my memories of them is just smashing the ball all over the place and then bowling at speeds that were unthinkable. It felt like that was the cat. It felt like a whole different sport to me that they were playing from the rest of the cricketing world. And that really hooked me on that. But it didn't lead to me playing, but it did lead to me watching. And any time they came on. So I mean that. Sorry, carry on.
Well, I was going to say, it was my intention to do these interviews about 15 to 20 minutes. We've been going nearly half an hour. And
Jeez, really?
Yeah, and
you're getting your money's worth, patrons.
Yeah, I've got no intention of editing this, but what I might do, and you never know, we might come back and do some more another day. But I'll just finish off with one last question, and that is, what's your most memorable moment, apart from your very first one, in either Guerilla Cricket or with the sofa? The thing that sticks in your mind most of all.
Good Lord. There are so many. One that always comes into my head when I'm thinking about Guerilla. It's Guerilla Cricket more than anything else, and it doesn't. It involves. I wasn't there, but I was watching, and it was a night time. It must have. I guess it must have been the Ashes. I don't know, but poor Gary had been left in the studio on his own with a very, very drunk Harwood. And I don't know if you remember it, but it's one of those things where Gary, bless him, was doing his best to hold up the end and keep the conversation going. And Harwood was sitting there with a glass of. Him and Soph had been to a wedding. I think they turned up during the day and they were drunk or something, and it carried on as it often does in the studio. And Harwood got wind that I was watching. And I'm sitting there. I think I'd sent a tweet in going, "Oh, hello, Harwood. How are you? I think you've had a few or something like that." And Gary read it out, and Harwood then goes, "Oh, Nestlé boys watching," and he sort of went up to the camera and started to like wave at me and blow kisses. And it kind of, I thought to myself, this is going out live, and it kind of summed up, it summed up the whole kind of anarchic aspect of Test match sofa and Guerilla Cricket. And I think that kind of thing is what draws people into what we do.
Thank you.
More than just being factually correct about the pitch and the movement off the seam and the this, that, and the other. I think what drew me to it all was that they could have been commentating about football or anything else, but I think cricket does lend itself because you've got a long. So in a Test match, you've got this long day of, and you've got a lot of space. You've got a lot of time to talk because there's some, as Gary will always point out, cricket will find a way not to play cricket. So you do have time, and it does lend itself to veering off, and I think that is the thing that is what makes it good, and it's something that has to continue in that vein. I think they fell foul of it when they got taken over by the cricketer, and the cricketer didn't want a South London street boy accent on, and they didn't want this and they didn't want that. And there have been times where the line maybe has been close to have been crossed. It was with something.
The line is movable, I hear.
Well, I think we know what it is, and we've substituted some words.
Yes.
Bradnam gets a lot of mentions these days. It's not just about his average, but so I think that's what. But that certainly that memory of Harwood doing that, and I was in tears laughing at it. And poor Gary, I could see him in the background sitting there, kind of going, help me, I don't know what to do, because he's always very mindful of what's going out live as well, which is good, but Harwood was loose, Harwood was uncontrollable, and then he kind of sat back down and fell asleep.
Perfect.
And it was all going out live, which sums it all up for me.
That's the perfect place to put a bow on it, Nstlers. I just want to say thank you very much for your time. And
I hope I didn't talk too much. You didn't get to ask me many questions.
Oh, well, I didn't need to. Once the gate opened, it kept coming. But thank you not just for this, but for all the time and energy and love that you put into this, because I know that I've learned a lot from you, and I've had a lot of laughs with you too, and to me, that's a big part of what it's about.
You're still not sure about who the fool are, though, are you? Really?
Not really, no. But I don't really care either. Thanks very much, there. So catch you soon.
See you, mate.